Jon Rahm. LIV Golf. 9 figures. 3 words that just turned into the biggest threat LIV Golf has faced all year. According to a new report, LIV Golf itself is now almost resigned to the idea that Jon Rahm, the player whose signing gave this entire league its credibility, is leaving, possibly as soon as next season, possibly even sooner than that, and sitting at the center of it all is a staggering unresolved number. LIV Golf reportedly still owes Rahm a 9-figure sum from his original contract, money that has not been paid. With no clear resolution in sight, I end this video. We break down exactly what triggered this shocking new report, how much money is really on the line, why Rahm reportedly does not want what LIV Golf is offering instead, and how a separate blow from the DP World Tour is making his decision even more urgent. For more coverage in golf, subscribe and hit the notification bell. To understand how significant this moment really is, you have to remember exactly what Jon Rahm's arrival meant for LIV Golf back in 2024 when Rahm agreed to leave the PGA Tour for LIV Golf. He did so for a reported $300 million, instantly becoming the most expensive, most symbolically important signing in the league's short history. This was not just another player chasing guaranteed money. This was a reigning major champion, one of the most complete players in the world, choosing to join a league that desperately needed exactly that kind of credibility. In many ways, Rahm's decision gave LIV Golf its wings, proof that this was not simply a landing spot for aging stars, but a legitimate destination for players still at the very peak of their powers. Just over a week before this new report broke, LIV Golf appeared to be turning a corner. Commissioner Scott O'Neill publicly confirmed the league had signed a term sheet with a potential new investor, a major step towards securing the league's financial future after Saudi Arabia's public investment fund began stepping back. Later that same day, reports identified the investor as BC Partners, a credit firm that had already generated its own share of headlines earlier this summer due to its financial ties to Bryson DeChambeau's management agency. For a moment, it looked like LIV Golf finally had real momentum behind it. A term sheet, a credible investor, and genuine optimism from the league's own leadership about turning the page into a new chapter. That optimism did not last long. According to a new report from The Telegraph, sources close to LIV Golf have confirmed something far less encouraging than the league's public messaging suggested. The league itself is reportedly almost resigned to Jon Rahm leaving LIV Golf, whether that happens at the start of the 2027 season or even sooner. This is not outside speculation from fans or media pundits. This is coming from people close to the league's own inner circle, essentially acknowledging what LIV Golf has spent months publicly trying to avoid confirming. So what exactly is driving Rahm toward the exit, even as LIV Golf tries to celebrate genuine progress on its investment deal? The answer comes down to money, and a very specific, very large amount of it. That is exactly what we break down next. Here is where the numbers become genuinely staggering. Over his 3 years with LIV Golf, Jon Rahm has earned more than $90 million in pure on-course prize money alone, a figure that already places him among the highest-earning golfers in the sport's history over that shorter stretch. But that $90 million is only part of the picture, and it is not even the part causing the current crisis. According to the report, LIV Golf still owes Rahm a 9-figure amount tied directly to his original contract, money separate from what he has already collected through tournament winnings. The exact figure has not been publicly disclosed, but a 9-figure sum means we are talking about somewhere north of $100 million still outstanding, an obligation the league has not resolved even as it works to finalize new outside investment. This is exactly the kind of legacy financial commitment that has made LIV Golf's search for new backing so complicated all year. As we've covered before, any new investment deal reportedly depends heavily on how these existing player obligations get resolved. One option on the table involves the public investment fund settling some of that outstanding debt, either through a direct payment or by offering Rahm equity in a newly restructured version of the league, something industry insiders have started referring to as LIV Golf 2.0. Here is the detail that makes this story so significant. According to the source behind this new report, Jon Rahm is reportedly not interested in that equity-based solution. Rather than accepting a stake in an uncertain, still-forming version of LIV Golf in place of the money he is actually owed, Rahm's camp appears to be leaning firmly towards simply walking away instead. Think about what that decision actually represents. This is not a player looking for a modest adjustment to his deal. This is a player reportedly unwilling to trade guaranteed, already earned compensation for a bet on a league whose entire financial future is still being negotiated in real time. That reported reluctance puts LIV Golf in an extremely difficult position. The league needs its outstanding financial obligations resolved to satisfy new investors, and Rahm, its single most symbolically important signing, may not be willing to accept the exact kind of resolution the league is hoping to offer. So how does this actually affect the new investment deal itself? That is exactly what we turn to next. Here is why Jon Rahm's decision matters far beyond his own individual career. According to the Financial Times, the entire funding agreement with BC Partners may genuinely hinge on whether LIV Golf's top stars actually stay with the league. That detail turns Rahm's situation from a personal contract dispute into something with much bigger consequences. If BC Partners' commitment is contingent on retaining enough star power to keep LIV Golf commercially viable, then losing a player of Rahm's stature is not just a roster loss. It is a direct threat to the very deal the league is counting on to survive its next chapter. This is where the contrast with Bryson DeChambeau becomes especially important. According to reports, DeChambeau has shown genuine commitment to LIV Golf's future, remaining actively engaged in helping the league secure new investment and publicly expressing hope about where things are headed. Rahm, by comparison, has reportedly shown no equivalent commitment. That gap between the league's two biggest stars, one actively pulling toward LIV Golf's next chapter and the other reportedly already halfway out the door, is exactly the kind of split that puts real pressure on whether this investment deal ultimately gets across the finish line. Put yourself in the position of BC Partners for a moment. You are reportedly negotiating a deal specifically because you believe LIV Golf's roster still has enough star power to justify the investment. Then you learn that one of the two biggest names anchoring that roster, a two-time major champion earning a $300 million contract just 3 years ago, is close to walking away entirely, with a 9-figure financial dispute still completely unresolved. That is not a small wrinkle. That is exactly the kind of uncertainty that makes investors hesitate, delay, or reconsider the terms of a deal they were previously ready to finalize. This also explains why LIV Golf's own leadership has been so careful in recent public comments, repeatedly praising both DeChambeau and Rahm without ever fully confirming either of their long-term futures. If insiders are already resigned to losing Rahm, that hesitation from leadership starts to make a lot more sense. But money is not the only pressure pushing Rahm toward the exit right now. On the very same day this report broke, a completely separate development from the DP World Tour added even more urgency to his decision. That is exactly what we break down next. Here is where Jon Rahm's situation gets even more complicated, because the same day this financial report emerged, the DP World Tour delivered its own significant blow to LIV Golf's players. The DP World Tour has granted conditional releases to 8 LIV Golf players, including Tyrrell Hatton, allowing them to compete in conflicting LIV Golf events during the 2026 season without facing additional fines or suspensions. That arrangement came with conditions attached, requiring those players to pay off any outstanding fines, withdraw pending appeals, and meet specific playing and promotional commitments to the DP World Tour. Jon Rahm was not originally part of that group, but he reportedly reached a separate, similarly structured agreement of his own back in May. Here is the part that changes everything moving forward. According to reports, the DP World Tour has now told LIV Golf players that it is highly unlikely equivalent conditional releases will be issued again for the 2027 season. While no final, official ruling has been issued yet, that message alone sends a clear warning. If that position holds, LIV Golf players who continue competing in conflicting events risk facing real sanctions once again, the exact kind of penalties this year's conditional arrangement was specifically designed to avoid. For players like Rahm, Tyrrell Hatton, Sergio Garcia, and Lee Westwood, this creates an almost impossible squeeze. None of these players want to risk their Ryder Cup eligibility, a competition tied directly to standing and status within European golf's traditional tour structure. If the DP World Tour genuinely shuts the door on conditional releases heading into 2027, these players may be forced into a stark choice: stay with LIV Golf and risk their Ryder Cup future, or walk away from LIV Golf entirely to protect it. For Jon Rahm specifically, a proud Spanish golfer whose connection to Ryder Cup competition carries deep personal and historical significance, that choice becomes even more loaded. Combine that pressure with an unresolved 9-figure financial dispute and reported disinterest in accepting equity as a substitute, and you start to see exactly why insiders are already describing LIV Golf as almost resigned to losing him. This is not one single issue pushing Rahm toward the exit. It is multiple significant pressures converging at almost exactly the same moment. So with all of this mounting at once, what does the bigger picture actually look like for LIV Golf going forward? That is exactly where we land in our final chapter. Step back and look at the complete picture, because Jon Rahm's situation is not happening in isolation. It is landing on top of what has already been an extraordinarily difficult stretch for LIV Golf. This year alone, the league has already dealt with Saudi Arabia's public investment fund stepping back from its financial backing, lawsuits from 3 separate companies, including World Golf Group, the Premier Golf League, and Mobi systems, and a significant alliance formed between the Asian Tour, the DP World Tour, and the PGA Tour, a partnership that further strengthens the traditional tour ecosystem LIV Golf was originally built to challenge. Now, on top of all of that, the league's carefully positioned new investment deal with BC Partners appears increasingly uncertain, with its most symbolically important star reportedly already resigned to leaving. LIV Golf season is set to close out at Indianapolis, the league's final event before the off-season. Remarkably, even amid all of this uncertainty, Jon Rahm has continued to dominate on the course, having already secured another individual championship this season. But despite that continued excellence, it remains genuinely uncertain whether he will even play in Indianapolis at all, with his broader decision about LIV Golf's future reportedly expected within the next few weeks. That contrast captures the strange reality of where Jon Rahm's LIV Golf story currently stands. A player still performing at an elite, championship level on the course, while simultaneously standing at the center of a 9-figure financial dispute that could determine whether the league's next investment deal survives at all. Whatever Rahm ultimately decides, the outcome is set to shape far more than his own career. It could determine whether LIV Golf, already fighting off lawsuits, a departing financial backer, and a strengthening alliance among its rivals, has any real future left to offer the rest of its roster at all. For more coverage in golf, subscribe and hit the notification bell.